Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're diving straight into the ultimate survival machine. And no, it's not a jet engine, and it's definitely not a supercomputer. It is literally your very own body. We're going to explore this by walking through a genuinely fantastic set of class notes on life processes, put together by a student named Abhinav Thakur. These notes are great because they perfectly distill that incredibly complex biological symphony happening inside you right this very second into clear, manageable chunks.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap. We've got 4 main sections: fueling up with nutrition, unlocking energy through respiration, the delivery network of transportation, and finally, taking out the trash, which is excretion.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Fueling Up, which is all about nutrition and how we acquire those essential raw materials.
So to start, biology basically divides the living world into 2 main camps based on how they get their dinner. First, we have autotrophic nutrition. These are the self-sufficient ones, like green plants, that literally manufacture their own food. It's kind of amazing. Then we have heterotrophic nutrition. That's us. We totally depend on others for our food. But honestly, heterotrophs are a really diverse bunch. Some are holozoic, meaning they ingest their food whole. Think humans or even an amoeba. Then you've got saprotrophic organisms, like fungi, which digest dead matter. And let's not forget the parasitic ones, like the cascada plant. That guy relies entirely on stealing nutrients from a host organism just to survive.
And the process those autotrophic plants use? Well, it follows an exact mathematical recipe. This is the classic equation for photosynthesis. They grab 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, literally pulling it right out of the thin air through tiny little pores called stomata. Combine that with 12 molecules of water, and then use sunlight and chlorophyll to spark a reaction. The end result? Glucose to feed themselves, plus oxygen and water as byproducts. I mean, talk about elegant. Zero waste manufacturing, right?
Now, since we humans can't exactly just stand out in the sun to make lunch, we have to eat. But before we trace a bite of food down your body's internal disassembly line, we really need to define a crucial term: peristalsis. Because, swallowing isn't just about gravity. Peristalsis is the rhythmic, wave-like movement of the muscles in your esophagus that actively pushes food downward. You could literally eat a sandwich hanging completely upside down, and peristalsis would still force that food straight into your stomach.
So let's actually follow that sandwich. Human digestion is basically a highly coordinated chemical breakdown. It kicks off right in the mouth, where your saliva uses an enzyme called amylase to immediately start breaking down starches. From there, the food travels down the esophagus via that peristalsis we just talked about and hits the stomach. Here, hydrochloric acid and the enzyme pepsin aggressively attack and digest proteins. Next up, it moves into the small intestine, which is really the main event. Bile from your liver steps in to emulsify fats, while enzymes like trypsin and lipase from your pancreas break down whatever proteins and fats are left over. Then, these tiny finger-like projections called villi absorb all these newly freed nutrients straight into your bloodstream. Finally, the large intestine absorbs any remaining water and, well, the leftover waste exits through the anus.
But here's the thing. Breaking down that sandwich into glucose and amino acids, that's really only half the battle. The big question we have to ask now is, how do we actually get usable, driving energy out of this broken down food?
That brings us to Section 2, Unlocking Energy, all through respiration, where oxygen is the absolute key.
So, a quick clarification. Respiration is not just breathing in and out. It's actually the cellular breakdown of food to release energy in the form of ATP. And there are 2 main ways this goes down. First, we have aerobic respiration, which uses oxygen. This takes place in the cell's mitochondria, transforming glucose into carbon dioxide and water and yielding a massive amount of energy. But then there's anaerobic respiration, which happens without oxygen. Because it's missing that oxygen, it yields way less energy. Interestingly, in yeast, anaerobic respiration kind of magically turns glucose into ethanol and carbon dioxide. But in humans, say you're sprinting as fast as you can and your muscles just run out of oxygen, they actually switch to anaerobic respiration. That creates lactic acid, which is exactly what causes that deep burning sensation you feel in your legs.
Obviously, to ensure we stay in that highly efficient aerobic state, we need a lot of oxygen. Here is the exact path a breath of air takes to get inside you. You breathe in through your nostrils. The air travels down your trachea, the windpipe, which, fun fact, is supported by these rings of cartilage so it doesn't just collapse on itself.
From there, the trachea splits into two bronchi, leading directly into the lungs. Those branch further into tiny bronchioles and finally end up in these microscopic little air sacs called alveoli.
Now, these alveoli are absolutely crucial. They are the ultimate sites of gas exchange. They're incredible little structures with a massive surface area, incredibly thin walls, and a very rich blood supply. Right here at this exchange point, a specific pigment in your red blood cells called hemoglobin physically grabs the oxygen right out of the air. And at the exact same time, the carbon dioxide that your body produced as waste, which is mostly just floating around dissolved in your blood plasma, crosses back into the alveoli so you can exhale it.
Okay, so now we have a gut completely full of absorbed nutrients and lungs packed with freshly grabbed oxygen. But how do these vital resources actually travel from your core all the way down to your toes or way up to your brain?
Let's dive into Section 3, the delivery network. This is all about transportation and moving resources exactly where they belong.
The crucial thing to remember here boils down to one number, 4. Your heart is a brilliantly designed 4-chambered transit hub. You've got a right atrium and ventricle and a left atrium and ventricle. But why 4 chambers? Well, it allows for what we call double circulation. Basically, blood passes through the heart twice per cycle. Deoxygenated blood goes out to the lungs, comes back completely oxygenated, and then is forcefully pumped out to the rest of the body. Having separate sides completely prevents oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor blood from ever mixing, and that guarantees a highly efficient oxygen supply, which a demanding organism like you definitely needs.
The actual material flowing through this transit hub is, of course, your blood, and it's really a team of 4 highly specialized components working together. You have plasma, which is the liquid transport medium. You have red blood cells acting as your dedicated oxygen carriers. Then there are the white blood cells, basically your body's internal security team fighting off infections. And finally, platelets, which rush in to handle clotting if there's ever a leak. Oh, and alongside this primary system, there's also a secondary network of lymph fluid. That system drains excess fluid from your tissues and transports digested fats.
The highways for all this blood are your blood vessels. Arteries are these thick-walled pipelines specifically designed to carry high-pressure blood away from the heart. Veins, on the other hand, are thin-walled. They carry lower-pressure blood back to the heart, and they even have these special built-in valves to prevent the blood from flowing backward. And connecting the arteries and veins, those are the capillaries, extremely thin, microscopic vessels where the actual handoff of food and oxygen into your cells takes place.
Now, what's really fascinating is how plants handle transportation without having a heart at all. They use specialized tubes instead. Xylem transports water and minerals exclusively upward, right from the roots to the leaves. It's actually driven by something called transpiration pull. As water evaporates from the leaves, it creates a physical suction that literally pulls more water up from below. Phloem, meanwhile, transports the food the plant just made. This movement is called translocation, and it happens in both directions. Unlike the xylem, it actually requires the plant to spend ATP energy to push those nutrients around.
So, whether you're a plant moving glucose through the phloem or a human delivering oxygen via your arteries, your cells are constantly consuming resources. And as we know, consumption creates byproducts. Once those nutrients and oxygen are used up, what happens to all the waste? And that brings us to our final phase, Section 4, taking out the trash, also known as excretion, where we carefully remove metabolic waste.
For us humans, the absolute heroes of excretion are the kidneys. If we zoom in microscopically, the basic working unit of the kidney is called the nephron, and your kidneys are packed with millions of them. Each nephron contains structures called Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. This is where your blood gets pushed through a biological filter. But the nephron is incredibly smart. It performs selective reabsorption. It literally pulls back the good stuff, like glucose, water, and essential salts, while letting the highly concentrated nitrogenous waste continue on its way as urine.
The path this waste takes is pretty straightforward. From the kidneys, the urine travels down a tube called the ureter. It's stored temporarily in the urinary bladder and finally exits the body through the urethra. This whole filtration process is so vital, so absolutely essential, that if the kidneys ever fail, humans had to develop a major medical workaround, dialysis. A dialysis machine basically steps in to act as an artificial kidney, filtering the blood when the body can no longer do it on its own.
Plants, of course, have to excrete waste too, but they're a little bit more creative about it. They literally exhale their gaseous waste, like oxygen during the day and carbon dioxide at night, directly through their stomata. They get rid of excess water through that transpiration process we mentioned. And for solid metabolic waste,
Plants might store it in cellular vacuoles, trap it in resins, release it into the soil through their roots, or, and I love this, they just elegantly pack the waste into old leaves that eventually just die and fall off the tree. Problem solved.
When we step back and look at the big picture, we can really see how these notes perfectly capture that none of these processes exist in isolation. You fuel up through nutrition, you unlock that fuel with oxygen through respiration, you deliver the fuel and oxygen to every single cell via transportation, and finally, you remove the toxic byproduct through excretion. It is one giant, interconnected, continuous biological loop of survival.
From the peristalsis of your esophagus pushing down your lunch, to the 4 chambers of your heart pumping endlessly, to the microscopic filtration of millions of nephrons, this incredibly complex machinery is running seamlessly in the background right now. It really makes you think, if your body does all this without you even having to think about it, what else is happening right under your nose? Keep asking questions, keep studying, and never stop marveling at the science of life. Thanks so much for joining this explainer today.